Yes, I'm a bit of a Power Rangers fan. I'll apologize for it another time when we'll be talking about the show as a whole. But in short, I like superheroes, I like giant robots, this franchise has them both. It's been a few weeks since the new season Megaforce premiered, to considerably small fanfare within the fandom, mostly because of how crap the previous season Samurai was. When the show's rights returned to series creator / Japanese action show adapter Jaime Saban, after Disney literally killed it, we were excited. I have to admit, I liked Samurai at first. It had a certain childlike charm that I found healthily nostalgic. It didn't take itself seriously in the least, and it had the potential to tap into a new audience of young fans and expand. Sadly, it was also marred by horrible acting all around and awful writing, mainly translated awkwardly from the original Japanese text. After the 10th episode or so, the season showed no signs of wanting to grow, and just kept doing the same extremely lazy job over the span of 2 goddamn years and 44 episodes. I hated it and never finished it. Things didn't look good for the new show either, first and foremost because of its title. Megaforce? Really? You couldn't have put any less effort in this if you called it Power Rangers Please Get Excited About the Show and Buy Our Toys Force. Another bad sign was that it was based on Tensu Sentai Goseija, which was, and let's not mince words here, fucking terrible. If Samurai, based on a show ranging from decent to pretty good, sucked, what chances does this show have? Well, as of the time of recording this, there have been 4 episodes of Megaforce out, and the show is actually pretty frigging awesome. It has decent production values, it's fun, the writing is solid enough for this type of show, and most of my problems come from the source material. Part of the reason it works is that it goes back to basics. 5 teenagers with attitude are selected by a giant head and his robot assistant to combat invading aliens. Sounds familiar? The first episode, Mega Mission, takes a lot of its cues from the very first Power Rangers episode ever, Day of the Dumpster, something that didn't exactly go unnoticed by the pseudo-intellectuals of certain boards. I'm not pointing any fingers, but we all know who they are. And here's the question, why shouldn't it? Day of the Dumpster is a perfect series premiere for this type of show. It manages to introduce its regular cast, the plot, the logistics, and show off enough action and toys to hook in the audience, all in the span of roughly 20 minutes. I'm surprised that in the 20-something years the show has been running, not more season premieres have been designed after it. In fact, in some respects, Mega Mission is actually better. Day of the Dumpster takes the cake in terms of pacing and action, but Mega Mission is superior in terms of dialogue and acting. Speaking of which, the acting is solid and the characters, while not quite developed yet, range from inoffensive to likable. Favorite Ranger so far? Noah, the Blue Ranger. This show is Billy from the original. He's the same type of character, but it's the actor that sells the gig to me. Much like Dawn of Thunder's Kevin Duhaney, if I pronounce the name right, this guy seems to be having a lot of fun in the role, and it rubs off on me as a viewer. The supporting cast is there, but it's downplayed for the time being, presumably because they need to cram 49 episodes of Goseija into 22 episodes of Megaforce this year. They need to cut a much tighter show, and the over-the-top comic relief factor that plagued past shows isn't nearly as prominent this time around. The villains are just invading aliens that look like insects. That's pretty much it. They lack the motivation and backstory that generally makes villains interesting and elevates a show, something we'll learn from the much underrated Lightspeed Rescue, but honestly, I'm cool with it. Sometimes it's good to have an ambiguously evil adversary and just let the heroes wail on them. It's a trope that survived thousands of years of mythology for good reason. There are some issues with the show, of course. 3 out of 5 Rangers are severely underdeveloped, and especially Troy the Red Ranger. Not only is he the weakest actor, but he's kind of bland and doesn't carry innate leader characteristics or aesthetics like, say, Jason's commanding role in MMPR that instantly identified him as the group's field commander. I also have some issues with the names. New Zordon and New Alpha 5 are called Gosei and Tensu, names taken directly from Goseija, which points to the same lazy attitude employed during Samurai, which I'm afraid may spill over to the rest of the show as well. Also, the names Megazords and Gosei Great Megazord just don't click. They sound like needlessly complicated jargon for the express purpose of standing out. If you're gonna do a quasi-reboot, at least fucking do it right. Go back to simply Zords and Megazord. And it'd be nice if the Rangers visited the command center every now and then, and if they would just use that teleport from the first episode to get to places. Gosei and Tensu so far feel completely superfluous and honestly wholly unneeded. I'm just afraid that the signs of creative or at least medic efforts shown in the first episode in terms of setting and context will go away for the rest of the series. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it, so what 12-year-old with free music mixer software did they get to do the music? It's bland, it's forgettable, and the main thing falls short of the worst fan-made YouTube Samurai theme remix you could possibly find. Oh Ron, how little weight the fights against Goldar would carry without your music playing in the background. My biggest problem, however, comes straight from Goseija. For a long time now, even if I like the season playing, I'd space out entirely during the action sequences both in Power Rangers and Super Sentai. That's because Toei has spent the better part of a decade cutting out all the practical effects and replacing them with bad CGI. What used to be a display of well-choreographed battles of various fighting styles is now an elaborate light show carried out with weapons that look more like toys than the actual toys. Instead of having a ranger take down a dozen henchmen conventionally, they will replace that with a flash of the corresponding ranger color followed by an explosion. Hits seem to rarely connect, and even finishing moves with melee weapons just fart CG lightsabers away. Every goddamn year the same shit. This has spilled over to the robot footage as well, partly because of the ease of CG and mostly because Toei and Bandai are blading the property for gimmicks. The robots aren't even properly designed anymore. They're just a mess of giant blocks of various colors whose only design principle is making sure that some parts can be interchangeable with other new parts that they will sell on the toy store separately at a later date. Not only do most of those robots look extremely plastic and, well, fake, but because of their ridiculous size, they make it impossible for the suit actors to move in them, thus making it impossible to choreograph a fight, thus falling back on the CG for anything more complicated than twitch shoulder to make it look like a side punch. I swear, the next time I see one of those robots use light beams, yes, light fucking beams as a finishing move, I'll fucking kill something. You created the giant monster genre, Japan, what the fuck? I'm not even asking for Die Ranger style violence here, even the pseudo-fighting choreography of MMPR Season 2 and 3 will do. Just something that won't give me a fucking seizure, please. This isn't really Power Rangers' fault anymore, but it's an unfortunate carryover that does hurt the enjoyment factor. For me anyway. Toei, cut this shit out. But enough with the rant. All that matters is, have I been having fun with the show? The answer is yes, written in giant letters with neon lights, Vegas Casino style. I could sit back and nitpick every single aspect of the writing and the acting, and while they're perfectly inoffensive, they have more than enough failings to bitch about if one's petty enough. Truth is, we may be getting too old for this shit. Power Rangers have never been ingrained into the pop culture the way things like Transformers have been. It'd be hard to stick to the show past a certain age because while it grew, it never showed much interest in shifting to a different audience like the Transformers have through various media like comic books or Hollywood blockbusters. Even at its dramatically best, the show has been primarily a kids club, but this return to form works. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers remains to this day the purest Power Ranger show. Not the best, mind you. That would go to Dino Thunder or Time Force, whatever the fuck you like best, just the purest, which makes sense as it was the first. When this show moved away from that formula, it expanded and even got better, but that charm was also lost and replaced by new ones. The problem with the Kalish seasons was that they were soulless after SPD, with the man seemingly forcing shows out while not really wanting to be there, adapting one Sentai show after another because he was contractually obligated. More than that, his writing was characterized by a certain smugness, with dialogue that forced the characters to look smarter than they were and forced me to feel like they all deserve a punch in the dick or cunt, and an over-reliance on a plot that wasn't that good to begin with. RPM and Samurai didn't suffer from the same problems, though they had their share of issues. RPM in that it was a well-written show, but the action seemed to get in the way of everything else, especially in the first half of the show, and Samurai in everything mentioned already. Megaforce is mostly devoid of such issues. It's 100% pure Power Rangers as I and my generation loved them 20 years ago when the show premiered. And while no, it wouldn't be good if the show stuck to this form indefinitely, it's nice to have that back, especially in a time when the franchise begs for redefinition after its many different forms and needs to be re-established in child audiences and seek a new place, however insignificant, in the pop culture. Yes, it's largely nostalgia. So what? I'm glad the show is the way it is, and if you've ever had any interest in the series whatsoever, I'd recommend catching the odd episode here and there.